The jungle of dancing light. The jungle stretched endlessly, a living sea of green, rolling from the deep blue of the coastline to the distant mountains that stood like sentinels at the edge of the world. The trees were so thick and tall that they formed a natural fortress, their canopies entwined like a great green quilt, offering shade and shelter to the creatures beneath. Here, in the heart of the wild, nature thrived, untamed, untouched, and fiercely guarded by the Amazons. These huntresses were unlike any other people in the world. Born of the jungle, they moved with grace and purpose through the underbrush, their keen eyes always vigilant for any threat to the harmony of their home. They did not hunt animals, for the beasts of the jungle were their companions, trained and cherished like family. The Amazons walked side by side with panthers, wolves, and hawks, communicating with them as if they shared the same soul. Together, they protected the sacred balance of the land. At the heart of the Amazon society was their queen, Mernev Dancing Light, a woman whose name reflected her very nature. Mernev was the embodiment of the jungle's spirit. She was quick, agile, and vibrant, as unpredictable as the wind rustling through the trees. Her laughter was often heard ringing through the treetops, a sound that made the world seem lighter. She ruled with a light touch, preferring joy and camaraderie over strict order. Under her leadership, the Amazons flourished, thriving as one with the world around them. Yet, despite her playful nature, Mernev was a force to be reckoned with. Her skills with a bow were unparalleled, and it was said she could communicate with the wildest of creatures. The beasts of the jungle obeyed her without question, recognizing her as one of their own. She had an almost magical connection to the natural world, something that had been passed down from the ancestors of her tribe. But there was more to Mernev than even her people knew. Beneath her cheerful exterior lay the wisdom of 1,000 seasons, and the jungle whispered to her its ancient secrets. The heart of the jungle. Deep within the jungle, hidden from the unworthy, stood the ancient Ziggurat. This towering structure had been there for as long as any Amazon could remember. It was built from stone that shimmered faintly with an emerald glow, as if it had absorbed the very essence of the jungle over the centuries. Vines crept up its weathered walls, and trees had grown around it, merging with the structure as though it were a natural part of the landscape. The ancient Ziggurat was the spiritual heart of the Amazon people. It was here that the tribe gathered to honor the spirits of the jungle, to commune with their ancestors, and to perform the sacred rituals that kept the balance between their world and the forces that sought to disrupt it. The Ziggurat was also a place of learning, where the Amazons passed down their knowledge of the natural world, how to communicate with animals, how to read the shifting patterns of the weather, and how to heal with the plants that grew in the forest. The Ziggurat was home to an ancient magic, a magic that tied the Amazons to the jungle in ways even they did not fully understand. Legends spoke of a time when the temple had been a place of great power, where priestesses communed directly with the spirits of the earth and sky. That power still lingered, waiting for the day when it would be needed again. Mernev often found herself drawn to the Ziggurat, especially in times of contemplation. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the sea, casting the jungle in a soft golden light, Mernev stood at the base of the temple, her gaze lingering on the distant horizon. She felt a pull, something stirring deep within the jungle, something ancient and powerful. She knew the jungle well enough to recognize when its balance was shifting. A call from the sea. The jungle had been peaceful for many moons, its creatures content and its people thriving. But that night, Mernev's dreams were filled with shadows, figures moving through the trees, their intentions unclear. In her dream, she saw the sea crashing against the cliffs, dark clouds gathering overhead. And then, she saw the ancient Ziggurat, glowing with an eerie light, as though it were waking from a long slumber. Mernev awoke with a start, the image of the glowing ziggurat still fresh in her mind. She could feel the energy in the air, a hum beneath the surface of the world. Something was coming. She had sensed it for weeks now, a subtle change in the way the wind moved through the trees, the way the animals seemed more restless than usual. The jungle was trying to tell her something. That morning, Mernev called for a council of her most trusted warriors. They gathered in a clearing beneath the great banyan trees, where the sunlight filtered through the leaves in beams of gold and green. The women sat in a circle, their faces painted with the symbols of their ancestors, their weapons laid out before them in silent readiness. "Something stirs in the jungle," Mernev said, her voice serious despite the usual light in her eyes. "I can feel it. The sea whispers of storms to come, and the land trembles beneath us. We must be ready." The Amazons nodded in agreement. They trusted their leader implicitly, for Mernev's instincts had never led them astray. She was as much a part of the jungle as the trees themselves, and when she spoke of a coming storm, they knew to prepare. "I will visit the ziggurat tonight," Mernev continued. "The jungle speaks, and I need to listen more closely. Whatever is coming, we must be ready to protect our home." The spirit of the ziggurat. That evening, Mernev climbed the steps of the ancient ziggurat alone. The air was thick with humidity, the scent of wet earth and blooming flowers filling her senses. The stone beneath her feet was warm from the day's sun, though the night was fast approaching. As she ascended, the sounds of the jungle faded, replaced by a deep, resonant silence. At the top of the ziggurat, Mernev knelt, her hands resting on the ancient stone. She closed her eyes and let her thoughts drift, opening herself to the whispers of the jungle. For a long time, there was nothing but the sound of her own breathing and the gentle rustle of the wind through the leaves. Then, slowly, she began to hear it. A voice, distant and faint, like the sound of water trickling through a hidden stream. It was the voice of the jungle, speaking in a language older than time. Mernev listened carefully, her heart steady, her mind focused. "The sea brings danger," the voice whispered, its tone soft and sorrowful. "A great power stirs beneath the waves, seeking to claim the land. The balance is in jeopardy, and only the daughters of the jungle can stop what is to come." Mernev's eyes snapped open, her heart pounding. She had heard the jungle speak before, but never with such urgency. The sea, it had always been their ally, a source of life and beauty. But now, it seemed, something dark and terrible was rising from its depths. She rose to her feet, her eyes blazing with determination. Whatever this threat was, she would face it. The Amazons had always been the protectors of the jungle, and they would not allow their home to fall to any power, no matter how great. The gathering storm. Mernev returned to her people with a renewed sense of purpose. The Amazons prepared for what was to come, fortifying their defenses and calling upon the creatures of the jungle for aid. Panthers, wolves, and even the mighty elephants that roamed the deep forest stood ready at their side, their eyes gleaming with loyalty and trust. Days passed, and the air grew heavier, as if the jungle itself was holding its breath. Then, one evening, the storm came. The sky darkened with unnatural speed, thick clouds rolling in from the sea. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and the wind howled through the trees, bending them low. Mernev stood at the edge of the jungle, her bow in hand, watching as the waves crashed violently against the shore. In the distance, she saw them, ships, their dark sails billowing in the storm. "Prepare yourselves," Mernev called, her voice cutting through the roar of the storm. "The jungle is with us." As the enemy landed, fierce and relentless, the Amazons charged with the wild beasts at their side. The jungle fought as one, its daughters and creatures moving in perfect harmony. The invaders were no match for the fury of nature itself, and soon the storm that had threatened their home became the storm that destroyed their enemies. In the end, as the rain began to fall in soft, cleansing sheets, Mernev stood atop the ancient ziggurat once more, her heart full of pride and relief. The jungle had been tested, but it had endured. Its daughters had risen to the challenge, as they always had, and would continue to do for generations to come. The jungle of dancing light would forever stand, wild and free, a testament to the unbreakable bond between nature and the Amazons who guarded it. And as long as Mernev ruled, with her laughter and her light, the jungle would remain a sanctuary, its spirit alive in every leaf, every creature, and every breath of the wind. The Games of the Jungle. In the weeks following the great storm, the jungle thrived under the protective watch of its Amazons. The land, untouched by the ravages that had befallen the invaders, returned to its peaceful state of verdant growth. Trees stretched toward the sky, vibrant and alive, while rivers flowed with the clear song of life. The animals roamed freely, side by side with the huntresses who guarded the jungle with unwavering devotion. But peace in the jungle was never a time of idleness for the Amazons. Mernev Dancing Light believed in the constant sharpening of both mind and body, not through rigid training but through joyful competition and the thrill of the chase. Each moon, when the light of the full moon bathed the jungle in silver, the Amazons gathered for the most sacred and anticipated of their traditions, the Games of the Jungle. The games were both a celebration of their connection to the jungle and a critical element of their training. These were no ordinary games, but a series of trials where the Amazons would hunt one another, not to harm, but to test their cunning, strength, and spirit. It was a ritual that bonded them, taught them the ways of the jungle, and reminded them that they were both the hunters and the hunted. At the end of the games, one Amazon would rise above the others as jungle champion, a title that came with honor, privileges, and the respect of the entire tribe. Preparation for the hunt. As the day of the games approached, the jungle hummed with anticipation. The Amazons, ranging in age from young initiates to seasoned warriors, gathered in the central glade to prepare for the event. Mernev Dancing Light stood at the head of the circle, her bright eyes filled with excitement as she surveyed her people. "The jungle watches us," Sisters Mernev called out, her voice ringing through the trees. "It sees our every step, our every choice. In these games, we honor the jungle, and in return, it tests us. It is a time for joy, a time for challenge, and a time for triumph. Let us show the jungle our strength, our spirit, and our harmony with it." The Amazons cheered in response, their voices echoing through the jungle, stirring the birds from their nests and the beasts from their dens. Each Amazon knew the importance of the games, not just as a test of skill, but as a reaffirmation of their bond with the jungle. The night before the games, they gathered around great fires, sharing stories of past hunts and the legendary feats of previous champions. Young Amazons listened in awe, eager for their chance to prove themselves, while veterans offered advice and warnings, each tale laced with wisdom. It was a night of camaraderie, where laughter and excitement filled the air, and the shadows danced on the trees as the flames crackled. The rules of the games. At dawn, the games began. The rules of the games were simple yet designed to test every aspect of the Amazons' abilities. For one day and one night, the entire jungle became the battleground. Each Amazon would be both hunter and prey, armed only with wooden weapons and the knowledge of the land. The objective was to tag other Amazons by marking them with a special dye made from crushed jungle berries. Once an Amazon was marked 3 times, she was out of the competition. The last woman standing, the one who remained unmarked, would be crowned the jungle champion. In addition to the thrill of the hunt, the Amazons had to navigate the traps and obstacles that the jungle itself presented. They had to work with the animals they had trained, using their bonds with the creatures to aid them in the chase. Eagles and hawks scouted from above, wolves and jaguars prowled through the underbrush, and monkeys swung through the trees, ready to assist their Amazon sisters. But the most sacred rule was this: no Amazon would ever harm an animal or her sister during the games. It was a competition, yes, but it was also a celebration of their unity, their bond with the jungle, and their respect for life. The hunt begins. Mernev Dancing Light, as the reigning queen, always participated in the games, though she rarely sought the title of champion. For her, the games were a way to keep her skills sharp and to inspire the younger Amazons. She darted through the jungle with the grace of a panther, her laughter carrying through the trees as she dodged hunters and left false trails behind her. The younger Amazons, full of energy and ambition, quickly set out in pursuit of their targets. Some hunted in pairs, using their knowledge of the jungle's terrain to set traps and ambushes. Others relied on their speed and agility, moving swiftly through the undergrowth to avoid capture. The seasoned veterans, meanwhile, employed patience and strategy, knowing that the hunt was as much about endurance as it was about skill. The jungle itself came alive during the games. Birds called out warnings to those they favored, while the wolves and panthers prowled silently, aiding their companions in the hunt. Trees seemed to shift and sway, their branches lowering to hide an Amazon from view or rising to reveal her to a pursuer. The jungle was not just the arena, it was an active participant in the games. As the day wore on, the competition grew fiercer. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the jungle floor. More and more Amazons were marked with the telltale streaks of berry dye, their hunt over for this moon. They returned to the central glade to watch the remaining hunters, cheering on their sisters from the sidelines. The final hunt. As night fell, the number of remaining competitors dwindled. Mernev Dancing Light, as always, remained unmarked, a blur of movement in the twilight, her playful spirit unbowed. But she was not the only one. 3 others remained: Althea Stormspear, a fierce warrior known for her speed and sharp instincts; Selene Nightshade, whose quiet cunning and skill with traps had earned her a fearsome reputation; and Isla Rain Whisper, a younger Amazon with a deep connection to the animals of the jungle. The final moments of the games were a spectacle of skill. Althea, true to her name, moved like a storm, her spear a blur as she darted from tree to tree, looking for the perfect moment to strike. Selene had vanished into the shadows, her traps hidden beneath the foliage, waiting for an unwary hunter to fall into her web. Isla, meanwhile, had enlisted the aid of the jungle's creatures, a panther at her side and a hawk circling overhead, guiding her movements. Mernev watched from the treetops, her heart swelling with pride. These were her people, strong, capable, and one with the jungle. She would not interfere in the final moments of the hunt, for this was their time to shine. In the end, it was Isla Rain Whisper who claimed victory. With the silent grace of a jungle cat, she had outmaneuvered both Althea and Selene, using her deep bond with the jungle's creatures to stay one step ahead. She had not relied on traps or raw power, but on her connection to the land itself, moving as though she were an extension of the jungle. The jungle champion. When Isla returned to the central glade, the remaining Amazons erupted in cheers, celebrating their new jungle champion. Mernev embraced Isla warmly, her laughter ringing out across the jungle as she placed the ceremonial crown of woven vines and feathers upon the young warrior's head. "You have proven yourself, Isla Rain Whisper," Mernev said, her voice filled with pride. You are the jungle's champion. You have honored the land, the creatures, and your sisters with your skill and your spirit. As the new champion, Isla would enjoy the privileges that came with the title. She would have the honor of leading the next hunt, and she would be given a place of high regard among her sisters. Her voice would carry weight in the tribe's decisions, and she would be trusted with the care of the most sacred sites in the jungle, including the ancient Ziggurat. But more than that, she had earned the respect of her people. The title of Jungle Champion was not just a mark of skill, it was a testament to the strength, wisdom, and harmony that defined the Amazons of the jungle. As the fires were lit once more and the Amazons celebrated deep into the night, Mernev Dancing Light stood at the edge of the glade, watching the flickering flames. The jungle had chosen its champion, and the tribe was stronger for it. In this moment of joy and unity, she knew that as long as they continued to honor the jungle with their spirit and skill, the Amazons would remain its protectors, and the jungle would thrive for generations to come. The secrets of the jungle. The jungle was more than just a sea of trees, rivers, and wildlife. It was a living, breathing entity full of ancient wonders and hidden secrets, known only to the Amazons who called it home. The games of the jungle, with their wild hunts and trials, were but one part of the sacred relationship the Amazons had with their land. Beyond the physical training and the bonds with animals, the jungle held spiritual places of great significance, places where nature's magic pulsed stronger, and where the unseen forces of the world could be felt by those who sought them. The sacred hot springs of Eshera. Deep within the western reaches of the jungle, nestled at the foot of a cliff covered in ivy and moss, lay the sacred hot springs of Eshera. These springs had bubbled up from the earth for centuries, their waters warmed by the volcanic heart of the world below. The springs were a place of renewal and healing, their mineral-rich waters said to possess magical properties that could soothe injuries, cleanse the spirit, and even enhance an Amazon's natural abilities. The hot springs were not just a physical sanctuary but a sacred place for meditation. Amazons often came here to bathe under the moonlight, where the steam rose in ghostly tendrils, swirling in the cool night air. It was believed that if one sat in the water long enough, they could hear the whispers of the earth itself, guiding them to new wisdom or showing them glimpses of the future. For many, the springs were a place to reconnect with the jungle's soul. Mernev Dancing Light herself visited the springs often, not just as a leader seeking clarity, but as a woman who found joy in the simple pleasures of life. It was here that she would sometimes disappear for hours, laughing as she waded into the steaming water, the cares of leadership momentarily forgotten. The springs were a reminder that, for all their strength, the Amazons were still part of the natural cycle, part of the jungle's heart. The Great Tree of Luria. At the center of the jungle, towering above all other life, stood the Great Tree of Luria. It was said that the tree had been there since before the jungle itself, a silent witness to the passing of centuries. Its trunk was so wide that it took 10 Amazons, hand in hand, to encircle it. The roots stretched deep into the earth, weaving through the soil like veins, while its branches reached high into the sky, disappearing into the clouds. The Amazons believed that the great tree was a conduit between the mortal world and the spirit realm. Its roots were thought to connect to the heart of the earth, while its branches touched the heavens, acting as a bridge between the living and the spirits of the ancestors. Every Amazon revered the great tree, but only a few, those chosen by the jungle, were permitted to climb it. At the top, it was said, one could commune with the spirits, receiving visions and wisdom that shaped the future of their tribe. The great tree was the focal point of many rituals and ceremonies. Every year, during the Festival of Life, the Amazons gathered at the base of the tree to give thanks for the blessings of the jungle. The women sang songs of power and praise, their voices carrying through the branches, while the animals gathered around in peaceful observance. Mernev often stood beneath the great tree, looking up into its vast canopy, feeling the weight of history and power that hung in the air. It was a place of deep significance to her, a symbol of the unity between her people and the jungle. The Fairy Grove. Hidden in a secluded glade, far from the usual paths of the Amazons, lay a small but mystical place known only to a few, the Fairy Grove. Here, the light seemed to shimmer differently, as though time itself flowed more slowly. Tiny flowers of iridescent blue and purple grew in abundance, and the air was sweet with the scent of jasmine and honeysuckle. It was here that the fairies, small, luminous beings of the jungle, made their home. The fairies were ancient creatures, older than even the jungle itself. They were guardians of the unseen magic that ran through the land, protectors of balance and harmony. Though small in size, the fairies were beings of immense power, and their presence in the jungle was both a blessing and a mystery. Few Amazons ever laid eyes on them, but it was said that they watched over the tribe, offering protection and guidance in subtle ways. The Fairy Grove was a place of great secrecy. Mernev knew of it, of course, as did the eldest of the Amazons, but they spoke of it only in whispers. It was believed that the fairies had blessed the jungle long ago, and their presence ensured that nature would always thrive here. The fairies never involved themselves in the affairs of the mortals directly, but there were stories, old stories, of times when the fairies had intervened, bending the natural order to protect the jungle and its people. To the few who had seen the fairies, they appeared as glowing orbs of light, flitting among the trees like fireflies. They spoke in soft, musical tones, their voices like the sound of wind chimes in a gentle breeze. For those lucky enough to earn their favor, the fairies could offer guidance or even small blessings, though they were known to be mischievous as well, playing tricks on those who ventured too close to their grove without permission. The big cats and the mystery of Bastet. Among the creatures of the jungle, none were more revered, or more mysterious, than the big cats. Jaguars, panthers, and leopards prowled the forest with grace and intelligence that far surpassed that of other animals. These cats were not mere predators, they were something more. They understood the Amazons, moving in harmony with them, acting as their companions, guardians, and sometimes even equals. It was said that the big cats could understand human language, though they could not speak it. They followed the commands of the Amazons as though they were one mind, responding to gestures and words with an uncanny awareness. Many believed that it was the Amazons who had taught the cats this understanding, though no one truly knew how this connection had come to be. There were whispers, however, of an older power at play, of the influence of a distant and ancient goddess. Bastet, the Egyptian goddess of cats, women, and protection, was said to have a hand in the bond between the Amazons and the big cats. According to legend, long ago, the Amazons had prayed to Bastet for guidance in protecting the jungle. In response, the goddess had gifted them the companionship of the great cats, granting the animals a deeper understanding of their human companions. Though Bastet was not a goddess worshipped openly by the Amazons, there were quiet moments when they would leave offerings, small bowls of milk, fish, or honey, at the base of statues resembling great cats, as a way of honoring the goddess's silent patronage. Whether the connection to Bastet was real or myth, the Amazons knew that their relationship with the big cats was sacred, and they treated the animals with the respect and reverence due to ancient protectors. Mernev herself shared a deep bond with a black panther named Escher, who had been her companion since childhood. Escher understood Mernev's every word and gesture, moving with her as though they were extensions of each other. Together, they were a formidable pair, whether in battle or during the sacred rituals of the jungle. The whisper of the ancients. As Mernev Dancing Light stood beneath the canopy of the great tree of Luria one evening, she felt the presence of all these ancient forces around her, the strength of the sacred hot springs, the wisdom of the great tree, the playful magic of the fairy grove, and the silent, watchful eyes of the big cats. She knew that these were not merely legends or relics of the past. They were the lifeblood of the jungle, the invisible threads that held everything together. The jungle was more than just a home. It was a living, breathing entity, watched over by forces far older than any Amazon, forces that protected, nurtured, and sometimes tested them. And as long as Mernev and her people continued to honor these sacred places, the jungle would continue to thrive, its mysteries ever deepening, waiting for those worthy enough to uncover them. For now, the Amazons were content to live in harmony with their land, knowing that the jungle itself watched over them, as it always had, and as it always would. But in the quiet moments, when the moonlight shone through the trees and the night was still, Mernev could sometimes feel the eyes of something greater watching over her, a presence both comforting and wild, like the soft purr of a cat in the darkness,